Thank you. Thank y'all for having me tonight. Those of you that were here last month, that's a hard act to follow. Those guys were good. That was an excellent presentation. We enjoyed it thoroughly. I have been collecting railroad memorabilia since I was 12 years old. I'm 58. I started because my grandfather worked for Southern Railway. He was storehouse keeper at Hain Car Shop in Spartanburg. And at the age of 6, I started going every summer, and I would spend the summer in Spartanburg. Well, I'd go to work with him. And at the time, OSHA, I guess, didn't exist. You know? Because as the guys were working on the cars and they were refitting them, I was running through them. I knew all the men. I played on those trains. I rode the yard locomotives. Anything that was there was available to me. So I grew up around this. Didn't work for them, but I grew up around it with my grandfather. At the age of 12, my grandfather decided he was going to clean out his garage. Now, of course, in a child's eyes, this garage was, 19 bays wide and 300 feet long, but it really wasn't. It was a one-car garage. But I did find out one thing with employees of at least Southern Railroad. If they wanted it, they took it home. It didn't matter. I mean, to this day, I have yard tools that are from Southern Railroad. Shovels, rakes, axes, pick, anything. It all came from the railroad. So if these men needed it, they took it home with them. Well, that was the same way with this. We go to clean out the garage, and he gave me 3 things that day. He gave me a lantern, 1934 clear globe lantern. He gave me a long neck oiler that they oiled steam locomotives with. And he gave me this. This came out of one of the presidents of the railroad's business cars. I don't know which one. Yes. And what they did there at Hain, if it had anything to do with passenger service, refurbishing cars, doing anything, it was done at Hain Car Shop in Spartanburg for the Southern Railroad. They did all their work there. So this is what started me into this, because I love the shiny stuff. I do. I do. I was telling somebody earlier, thanks to my non-pro career in football, I have arthritis in my hands from breaking fingers and dislocating them as a child. So I can put on gloves and I can put my hands under that hot water, polishing it. It helps my arthritis. So I don't mind polishing it a bit. And like I said, I love it. It's shiny. There's something about shiny stuff that I like. And so it was just the perfect fit. So from that, I started collecting. I happened to live close to at the time to the Anderson flea market. Every Saturday morning at 4 o'clock, I would go down there with my flashlight and I would hunt railroad stuff. My friends were out getting drunk. I was looking for junk. So it kept me out of trouble. But like I said, I've always enjoyed it. And through the years, we have collected quite a few things, Brenda and I. I believe to date, we're dining car, china, silver, flatware, and all of it. We have over 2,000 pieces from Southern Railroad. And I bought all of it basically one piece at a time. I've never found big lots of it. I've bought it one piece at a time, here, there, everywhere. So, as we look at this tonight, everything you see is mine. I'm not bragging. I just want you to know that I didn't go out and just find a picture of it somewhere. This is stuff from our collection, and a lot of it there's multiples of, because like with the dining car china, we try to get at least 4 place settings of each so that we can use it. You will not eat a meal at our house on anything but railroad china. I saw this picture when I was getting this together, and I can look right out the window and I see that's the Carolina in the early 1950s coming into Saluda. And on that train would have been a dining car. That was the call to the dining car. First recorded meal served on a train, 1853, on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. It was not cooked on the train, it was served on the train. It was like a box lunch that they brought in. So let's see, the actual first real dining car, 1858 on the Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad, which became the Pennsylvania. And then 10 years later, George Pullman entered the scene with a Delmonico. And George Pullman changed railroad history with his dining cars, with his sleeper cars, with just the luxury of railroad. Pullman operated those through Southern. Southern did not have that early capability because they came about in 1894 after the Richmond and Danville. There's a scatter railroads. East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia, the Memphis and Charleston, the Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific, they'd all basically gone into receivership. They were all broke. And they came out of receivership, kind of like the bankruptcy laws today. They formed a new company and they didn't have to pay their bills. And they came out as the Southern Railroad, or Southern Railway. Anyway, they come out in 1894 out of receivership as Southern Railway. That time, they don't have dining cars. They don't have a lot of anything. So Pullman is operating this. Pullman operates a long time with them. They operate well into the, 60s with them. But in 1897, Southern Railroad starts their own dining service on some of the smaller trains. This is the first pattern of China that Southern used. It's the SR era. Richmond and Danville's logo was an R and a D with an arrow through it. Southern Railway, SR with an arrow through it. So a lot of that stayed the same. Along with each pattern of China, they also had their silver. And we've got a few pieces of it up here tonight. Most people, when they see this, are going to think it's a dustpan. There you go. See, I'm with a good audience. They know what it is. It's a crumber, where the waiters would clean off your table. They'd have the crumbs and sweep it up. Here's a water pitcher from the same era. Everything that they had, it all had their logos on it, which made it really nice for all of us who collect this stuff. They put their name on it so people wouldn't steal it, but because they put their name on it, people stole it. Here is a menu from 1900. It was heavy food, but it was good food. This is what a typical dining car in that era would have looked like. It was an experience. It was 5-star dining going 60 miles an hour. Just wonderful. I'm going to throw in a little piece of trivia because railroads owned a lot of stuff that people didn't know. And this isn't a Southern piece of trivia, but has anybody ever eaten or drank Deer Park water, bottled water? Deer Park Inn was owned by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. The railroad no longer owns it. They've sold, but they owned it well into the late 1990s. You can still get the water, and it does come from the springs at Deer Park. People didn't realize how much the railroad owned. It's like the Greenbrier Hotel. The Greenbrier Hotel was owned by the C&O Railroad. They owned a lot of things and had a lot of interest in things that people didn't know. So I can't speak for other railroads. I can speak for Southern. There were of course, the waiters, the cooks, all of this were African American. The stewards, the men in charge of the dining cars, were white. The waiters would take your order. The cooks would cook your order. The waiters would bring you your bill. And the steward would pick up your bill. The waiters did not touch the money. Only the steward touched the money. And they would bring out a tip tray. Your bill would be on there. You'd put your money on there. They'd go register, ring it up, bring you change back. So, like I said, it was still quite segregated. I mean, it just was. So we've seen the SR era. The SR era was 1897. They used that pattern of china until 1909. Where you see Southern on this, it had Pullman. So now they're integrating into where we're looking like Pullman. We want all of our trains to kind of look the same. Like I said, Pullman's going to have Pullman on it. Pullman called it the Calumet pattern. This was the Pelican pattern for Southern. So these are some of the different pieces that they had. These are the three platters. That's a 14-inch, 12-inch, and a 9-inch platter. And the railroad used more platters to serve food than plates. Plates, when they used them, were most of the time like this. So you see there was very little room. And they'd bring out, and they had covers on them. And it was a lot of toast and different things that they actually served on dinner plates. The meals, they served on platters, more so than plates. At the same time that they changed the china, they go to the silver. And it just Southern on the side. They used them and used them and used them. They were just constantly just replating. They just redid them. This was probably used on a business car, not in regular passenger service. This is a one-of-a-kind piece. This was for serving tea in your room. It is 5 pieces. It is on the style of English tea, where you had your tea, your cream, your sugar. So those are the pieces of that. We found the teapot, then we found the creamer. Brenda gave me the creamer one Christmas. She had found it somewhere. And I opened it, and the minute I saw it, I knew what it was. It was like, oh, I know because there was never a top for this teapot. So here's the creamer was the top. And then about 10 years later, we found the top to the creamer. This is more silver that they're using in that same era. They've ordered now from Wallace. On the bottoms of these in the Wallace, if it's in cursive, it had the name on the side at one time. If it was in block letter, it was only bottom marked. But unfortunately, because they did replate them, a lot of the side marks are gone. I've got some big ice buckets that I do wish the side mark was still on. They would have menus for these name trains. Each train that they had their own menus. They had their own silver. So a lot of this silver and things were probably used on different trains. We just don't know which. This is a luggage sticker. Have been given out in this depot. 1915 to 1920. So they were really pushing Asheville, land of the sky. This is when they improved the train service in 1917 to Saluda. I found this when I was going through stuff. It has nothing to do with dining cars, but I thought y'all might enjoy it. Now, 1920s, this is a filler service, going from that 1909 silver to the upcoming 1923 silver. This is just all filler pieces. This is all they had. This is what they got. This is a Christmas menu from 1922. It was a one-day menu. It was for Christmas Day, 1922. I mean, it's just a beautiful menu. We've gone from the 1909, where we were copying the Pullman pattern, to the most beautiful china Southern ever had. This is the peach blossom pattern. This is what's on this table right here. This started in 1923. They used this from 1923 until 1940. And it, like I said, this is just, it was the best that Southern ever had in the way of china. And when they were place settings, this is it. They stepped up their game, because now this is being used on the Crescent Limited. They're no longer relying on Pullman to be their A game. They are their own A game now. This is the silver that they did in 1923. The first silver they bought was from International. Made one order of it. It did not hold up well. The logos, after one replating, the logos were basically gone. This is the picture that's in that picture. And you can barely see the Southern logo here. Yeah, I mean, it was constant that they replated. This particular picture, and I love this picture. We found this, we went to a railroad show. And this was sitting on the floor. It was black as tar. Black. And I asked the guy, because I knew the guy's dad had bought a lot of Southern china and silver when the commissary went out of business in the late 70s. And I said, Leonard, how much is the picture? He's like, where's it from? Oh. I said, what do you want for it? You can have it.
Price is right.
Yeah, it's great. I didn't know what was under there. So we stopped that night and we got some silver polish and I started polishing. Hotels hate me. You know, you can't get that black out of those white towels. Nope. So anyway, we polished on it, and then lo and behold, here's the Southern logo. But that's not what I liked best about it. These big water pitchers are rare. A dining car may have had one or two. It was just because this is when he'd come out and pour your water. It wasn't something that they used on the table. So it was kind of a community thing for the waiters. But this one right here, undoubtedly at some point in time they wanted to chill their water and they put it in a freezer. And they split this from here to here. But they repaired it. And I know that it was repaired at Hain Car Shop in Spartanburg, because that's where all of it was replaced. The electroplating at Hain Car Shop. So I know that this thing was replated at the same time. Now, my grandfather wasn't doing plating. He was cutting up steam locomotives. But my grandfather was at that shop's the same time this was being repaired. This isn't sterling. This is silver plate. And they would just add another layer of nickel to the top of it. In the 1950s, they're replating silver they bought in the late 1800s, and they're still using it. So all this stuff was just used and used and used and used. So when you find stuff that you can read the logo, somebody stole it real early. I mean, they had to, because it wore. I mean, like I said, this, after plating, the logos were filled in. I've got pieces of this at home that I know are Southern Railway, and I can see kind of where the little circle is. But, like I said, I know where they're from.
Tell them we also went back and told them.
Oh, yeah, we also went back and told this boy, look, this is a Southern picture. What can I'm not going to give it back to you, but what can I pay you for it? And he never would take a penny for it. He said, I was never going to clean it up. It meant nothing to him because he didn't like it because it had where it was repaired. Now, that's what I liked about it. So now they go to this pattern of silver. This was Reed and Barton. It plated real well. They could use it for years. Here again, if they had the China mark, they had the silver mark, they marked all their glassware. Now, all this is barware. And with barware, with an ice bucket, there was one on a car. There was a shaker, there was one on a car. The strainers, there was one on a car. So there weren't multiples of these. But most people would think of this as what? A cocktail shaker, correct? That's not what it is. This was made, and it's what's so great about it is in Reed and Barton's catalog. It was made during Prohibition. This is a lemonade shaker. And you strained the lemonade. But yeah, they did, even in their catalog, they did not list them as cocktail shakers. Now, right after Prohibition, they were a cocktail shaker again. But during Prohibition, they were lemonade shakers. I love it. I mean, that's just... And then, of course, they had their menus. They had where you could get the drinks. And this would have been in a club car. And a lot of times the barware was in club cars more so than dining cars.
What year would that have been?
That menu, 1927. That's July of 27. They also had for the waiters how they wanted all of this presented. It had to be presented a certain way. Certain foods had to be on certain plates. Certain, like a gravy boat, had to have a liner under it. I mean, and the best one, and I apologize because we are under construction at my house, and our butter pats are packed away, but each person would have a butter pat where they would put your butter on. A little small 2.5, 3-inch plate. Same logos, same everything. And as they sliced the butter, it had to be a 1/4 inch thick, and each pat of butter had to have 3 fork tongs in the top of it. It could not be touched. It had to be. And these men would get fired if it wasn't that way. They were very strict on all of this stuff. I was telling this gentleman, we have lots of cookbooks from lots of railroads. But we have a Pullman cookbook that's like, it's a notebook. And it's like this thick. But the beauty of the Pullman cookbook, with every meal, with every dish, it shows you how it looked on the plate in color. In color. Here's a menu from 1931, I believe it is, still promoting the land of the sky. According to the railroad, they never made 1 penny off dining car service. That they more or less lost money all the time on it, but they had to have it on the train. But it was not a money maker, it was a money loser. This is china that is bought in 1941. We're coming out of the Depression. We're not into World War II yet. So in April and June of 1941, Southern Railroad introduces 2 new trains, the Southerner and the Tennessean. The Southerner was first, Tennessean came later. We're here with this china. At the same time, we're taking the logo off. We're going to the back stamp because now we're already saving money. But this was Southern's answer to the New York Central and the Pennsylvania streamlined trains, because Dreyfuss and all them have created these streamlined, these stainless steel trains. So Southern got to get on this action. Now, why in the world they took peach blossom, which in no way is streamlined? I mean, this is 1920s at best. Beautiful, but still. But this, they didn't change it. They've gone to these smaller menus. These are little tiny menus. They're saving paper already. During World War II, they shrunk their menus to save paper. So, I mean, again, war effort, everybody was in on it. But this silver was only used on the Southerner. It was made for the Southerner. It was used on the Southerner. It was used on no other train. It was never used on any other train. This is the silver that they used on the Tennessean. It is this silver without the logo on the top. It's the logo on the bottom. By now, all this is filled in. Most of this, they've replated it so much. Again, like I said, any of this that you're finding with good logos was stolen early. And it's filled in, so they don't bother to put it on the side. They've got all this silver, so now they just bottom mark it and go on. This is the most known china that Southern used. They used this from 1948 until 1979, early part of 79, when they finally relinquished to Amtrak. But this is the Piedmont pattern. It was originally made for the Crescent, because they re-outfitted the Crescent in 1948. World War II's over. They're beefing up, all stainless steel train. We're going to we pushed the Southerner and all that through before World War II. So we get out of World War II. Now we're going to vamp up the Crescent from New Orleans to Washington. This is the Piedmont pattern on the Crescent. This is a 1948 publicity shot. They were promoting the train. Most people just love this silver. That is streamlined. That's probably the prettiest they ever used, in my opinion. This is the chef, Louis Price. Louis started with the railroad in 1941 on the Southerner. And he worked for him, made his way, eventually worked on the Crescent. December 3rd, 1978, 2 months from when Southern was going to finally turn over their passenger train operation to Amtrak, he was killed in a derailment in Virginia. Southern was known for their corn muffins. It was his recipe. They used him in an advertising campaign in the mid-70s. He cooked for a lot of presidents in their private cars on the trains. They would request him to come back when they were pulling whoever is president. They would request he'd come back and cook for them over their own cooks. This is a late 70s dining car picture. This was in Washington. Again, this is on the Crescent. They were still trying to promote themselves even though they were just at the end of time. Some more of the smaller pieces, the mustard pots, toothpick holders. Toothpick holders, there was one per car. And they were set on a buffet near where the steward was, so you went by and got one. They were not on each table. Down at the bottom, the little forks, corn on the cob holders. And a waiter's badge, number 4 waiter's badge. That's from Southern. And then that's the last menu, last day of the Southern Crescent. Dining car service from 1897 till they finally succumbed to Amtrak on February 1st, 1979. Southern was the last one to go. 10 years earlier, everybody else in the United States had succumbed to Amtrak. Even though they weren't making money, they wanted to stay in the passenger business. And like I said, they held on about 10 years longer than anybody else. And I've spent most of my life fooling with railroad stuff. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. So, thank you.
Someone in the kitchen, I know. Someone in the kitchen with my diner.